No order. Approval of the agenda.
Do we want to add that other item or?
Yes. One addition to the agenda, we can add it at towards the end. After discussion on proposed storage container text amendment, we do have two people interested in serving on the Planning Commission, Dan Levitz and Ryan Kuski. So I'd like to have a motion or have an item that we recommend approval to them to join the Planning Commission up to City Council.
We're gonna give it number what? Number 8 or number
4A,
4A?
4B actually.
4B.
What's there should be. Any other business on the agenda? Somebody made a motion or not?
I'll move to approve the amended agenda.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to improve the minutes. No, improve the agenda in front of you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of the minutes for July 2nd, 24.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to approve the minutes of the July 2nd, 24 meeting minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 4A would be discussion on proposed storage container text amendment.
Well, I'll kind of just go through this quick. Last month, we had a discussion about storage containers and went through what the Planning Commission felt like they may want to see. So what we did here tonight is bring some draft text before you. This text it's not a public hearing or anything tonight, so it can be amended and changed, and we can call for a public hearing if we're satisfied with it. But what we're here to do is discuss this language tonight. Basically, what I put together is, on page 1 of your report is the definition for storage container. We brought that up at the last meeting. And then under section 152.090 outdoor storage, we added some language under there with letter F being the big one regarding storage containers. Basically, what we're saying is storage containers will be considered outside storage and shall be allowed, and we said in the agricultural, commercial, industrial, and the C1 general commerce district, shall not be allowed in any residential districts, the C2 business district or the PI public institutional district, unless it's on a temporary basis for construction or moving purposes. Applications shall be submitted to the city and reviewed for zoning compliance, and then I have a list of 9 requirements. One thing I want to bring up is a couple things Nick and I talked about in regards to some additional language. One of the items that we talked about is allowing them in the public institutional district as a possibility as well, which is the district like for City Hall and parks and city properties, I guess, stuff like that. So there was potentially a request to allow a storage container for some storage stuff. I don't know if that's still moving forward or not, but that would be one item that we could discuss. As far as the 9 items under that section, storage containers would be considered an accessory use. No permanent detached accessory storage container. Basically, it's shall be considered a principal use instead of an accessory use. So it's not a principal use; it's accessory use, and it shall not be located on a lot prior to construction of a principal structure. In regards to the number allowed, we talked about 3, so we have 3 storage containers located on a lot. For the use, they shall not be permitted to be rented or leased to third parties for storage purposes and shall only be used by the owner or occupant of that lot. Dimensions, we have shall not exceed 40 feet in length, 8 feet in width, or 10 feet in height, and shall not be stacked on top of each other. Location, they shall meet all accessory building setback requirements and shall only be located in the rear yard. One of the other things we talked about is allowing them potentially in the side yard in the commercial industrial district. Yes, go ahead.
I wonder if some containers aren't 8.5 feet, just to be technical.
On the width?
Yeah,
Yeah, and we can put that in there.
and just to be, as long as
Be
we're
on the
going
safe
into it.
side, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's the semi-trailer it's probably set up to 8.5, tell you the truth,
Oh,
but just guessing.
Just a term maximum height too, couldn't you? Or
I think the idea is to allow whatever the standard sizing of shipping containers are. You don't accidentally want to say 9 feet and you got a 9.5-foot one and now you have to
Yeah.
deny the thing.
If the bed of a trailer is 4 feet off, do you know this stuff, Donnie? Is that like the bed of a trailer 4 feet off the ground, 10 feet? That's 14 feet, then that's probably max, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure either, but I'm sorry, continue.
All right.
Well, it's just one of those little things you get caught on.
Storage containers? Okay, so if there's 50 footers, I guess we can talk about if we want to go with a 50 footer or keep 40 as the max. You know, it's something up to you guys. The next one, 6, is lot coverage. Unless being used on a temporary basis for, moving or construction purposes, the storage container shall count towards the lot coverage requirement for the district is located in. So if it's there for, years at a time, that should count towards that. Signs, no lettering or signs or lettering shall be permitted on the storage containers. Another item we talked about is actually if a storage container comes and it's got like the name of the company on it, some of those do, that would be allowed, but it would be no like new advertising or.
If it's screened.
Yes, correct. So, so that would be, well, we can talk about that too in the side yard stuff. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Screening, this language says they shall meet the requirements of section 152.091 screening. And basically, unless the owner paints the storage container to match the principal structure on the lot, screening shall be required when the storage container abuts a residential district or a public right-of-way. Another item we talked about is the actual paint on the thing. Do we need it to really match or can it be a complementary color? If it's a gray and you want a different shade of gray or something similar, that's probably okay, I guess. So maybe we can talk about that language. And then the last one is exterior appearance. Basically, we're saying storage containers shall be maintained in a good condition, free of structural damage, rust, deterioration, and shall be painted in a manner to match the principal structure on the lot if it is not screened per the screening section of the zoning ordinance. So basically, that's kind of the draft language here. I got the screening section below just so you have that for reference and what it says in the code, because that is referenced in this section. And I did add one little line in that first paragraph about, it shall be, a planting may be substituted for a screen wall or fence or incorporated into screen wall or fence, basically just saying you can have an option or, mix that up if you're doing that. So, which really, different situation than what we're talking about here. So basically that's what we're talking about. We're here for discussion. We're trying not to, allow too much of this, but yet we don't want to be so restrictive that nobody's ever going to be able to do these. But add it into the side yard in that commercial industrial district. That's something we'll definitely talk about here tonight. But I guess with that, all we're looking for is discussion and recommendations, and the plan would be if everything's in place, we'll bring back the actual code or draft next week or next month and with a public hearing and go from there. So we can start talking here, I guess.
It's amazing where you see them,
Yeah.
when you look for them, you see them and it's like, well, that's a kind of a decent place and yet they're not painted and, but some other stuff too is just one I saw, it's in Brainerd. If you take the shortcut to 210, it's a gray building, and then they have it where the doors are on the side, like it must be a drop off. And post office has a little one that's, I can't remember if it was Amazon's or whatever, but just different applications. It was summer storage for used tires and right in like Goodyear type of thing, and you see them all over if you look. But did you check with any other towns as far as how they were? Or?
I didn't. I wasn't able to make the last meeting. I wish I would have been here. I haven't checked with other cities and how they do things. But I did.
I have. I looked at this for that other community I work in, within 6 months ago, and this is fairly liberal for other communities. A lot of other communities are a lot more restrictive.
Right.
So this would allow for them. It's, where's that break point where you're allowing too much of it? But most other communities, it needs to be fully screened. They do allow them, whether it's, 1 or 2 or 3 on a lot. And typically it's only in industrial properties that they're allowed on. So we have a kind of unique district in town here, commercial industrial district. which has got a lot of industrial uses like out in Shimcor, but it does allow for uses like a Casey's, for instance. We also have the C1 district, which we're currently showing them to be allowed in. And a bigger discussion that we had is the properties up here kind of off of 7 and 25. Do we look at maybe rezoning that to a commercial industrial, those few properties? That may, we got the storage buildings and things like that. Most of that use fits in the commercial industrial district better than the C1 district. And ultimately, the C1 district is like a highway commercial. And for instance, if you look at the zoning map, everything up on Highway 7 and 25, up on the north end of town, which is technically not in the city, but it's in the zoning area, that would be a commercial area that would be zone C1. And is that something where you have these bigger commercial establishments out on the highway where you want storage containers? So that's why, as part of this discussion, you got to think about that. If we allow it in the C1, that could potentially be allowed in those areas. Or the properties that are currently dealing with that, do we just look at a rezone to C1, or excuse me, CI, commercial industrial, which would solve the problem? All those uses would now be conforming to the district and go that route. So that's kind of maybe part of the overall discussion on what's best for the city here, I guess.
John and I wasn't here. I gave John a call after got the notes, and some of the items we discussed, he did go over. Some of the questions I had, was that C1 versus a CI distinction. What would you allow on Shimcor versus, say, up in the C1 district? I think Nuremberg is an example we have there. Is there any differences you want to look at there? And then I also think about rented storage containers versus owned storage containers. That came into my mind when I read the materials on wanting that strict coloration to match the principal building. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm renting storage containers, do I always have that ability to choose that very specific color? Or would the planning commission be okay with earth tones or something that's complementary? So there's a ability there.
So renting, how long would that be? And, could it be 20 years you're going to rent it?
Screening would take place in that case, wouldn't it?
Well, if it sits there and it's rented and it gets changed out every so often, how is that much different than one that is owned and then permanently there? I guess the difference becomes, and then with the signage and the lettering, if you're renting something, the company that actually owns it might have their logo and then an identification number on there. Is that then okay, but no post-market, aftermarket lettering, something like that, then that is something that's not allowed, because we don't want people throwing up advertisements on the side of their storage containers. But if it's there for temporary and as part of their business operations, it's inventory container, it's there for 3-6 months or whatever long, and then it gets swapped out for a different one that has inventory on it.
But just the renting, I can see where two people, well, family, a couple, whatever, could own this container. They could own this building that their business, they rent this business to them. Well, now they're going to rent this container to them. So technically it's rented.
No, so that's in the.
You know what I'm saying?
I
No,
know
no,
what
no.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, but in the language that's proposed, third-party rentals like that are not
Okay.
allowed. This would be if you still owned R&V and you wanted to have a shipping container come in that had parts, things like that, because building.
Rented it and had it dropped
Mhm.
off and
No, I understand it,
picked
but
up
I was
and
just
swapped.
trying to cover up a loophole.
Yep, but you couldn't then
It's a
rent it
third
out to
person.
somebody else. That would
Okay.
be third-party rental, which language in here already prohibits that, which I'm
Okay.
fully on board with.
And my thought is, rather than just saying it needs to match the color of the principal structure, say it needs to be a complementary color to the principal structure and an earth tone type color, so we're not getting a pink or a
I was just going to say.
neon green or who knows what.
I'd be fine with the complimentary language.
I
And
agree.
as far as the lettering and signage, what I was picturing is you see the shipping containers that have Maersk or
Yeah.
Hyundai on. I mean, not so much advertising or, shipping label or anything, but the just emblazoned, obnoxious
Right.
coloring on them.
So you were talking about Shimcor. There's at least one place that must have 6 of them, kind of using them for shelves and business containers and whatnot. If you were talking about splitting it up, so maybe it's different for that.
Right.
But then
and-
also there was a thought, I don't know if it was in here. My ears weren't keeping up. Use that for an
You don't
excuse.
think it's covered by screening, huh?
When we talk about how many do you want to be allowed in certain areas, I don't, do you want
Your-
this?
Your color thing, I don't know why you're concerned about that. If you're gonna use screening, you don't have, according to this, you don't have to paint it.
I think it was
Yeah.
optional if you didn't
If
have
you
the
have
screen.
screening,
Yeah.
you don't have to paint it. So if you don't paint it, then you could screen it. So I don't know why you're making a issue out of this or that.
Screening costs money and that's an extra burden to businesses. Are we pro-business or
That fence looks
want to
good.
impose more government costs on them? And I'm not saying pro or anti.
Well, and
Every regulation comes with a cost. But then we have to balance that against the needs of the community, of course, too. So I'm not trying to make it a pit or a us, them. By no means, there's nuance in everything.
And I think the original language, draft language in your report says just in the rear yards. I know we talked about in the CI district, do we allow them in the side yards as well? And I think the screening situation versus the color, complementary color situation would remain the same, whether it's rear or side. The question is, do you want to allow them in the side yards in the commercial industrial district rather than just the rear?
In the side yard, meaning they really shouldn't be any further than the front of the building.
Yes, if the front of the building's here, you should not be closer to the street. You know, it'd be in the side going back to the rear.
A prime
Yeah, there's-
example,
There's one.
this is,
providing they got the space is what you're saying.
If they have the space, yeah. If they don't have the space, it can't do it, but.
this is one of the examples. They do have storage containers, other places in town do, and that's why we're discussing it. If you have no rear yard to speak of, or not enough rear yard, do you ban them outright, or do you allow them in a partial side? Because whereas this is where they've been located. I drive past it every day. But it's located the rear, it's on the edge here. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. If they could be a complementary color, I think that'd look good. He uses them as part of his daily business for inventory purposes. But I don't know if he could get them back here any better or any better. I don't know. So do you allow partial in the back side yard or? I'm trying to look at the unique circumstances of our specific businesses. What that
I
looks
don't
like.
think side yard would be too bad.
Not to pick on Tom at all, but
No,
we go right next
That's not
door.
me. That's not me.
If there's screening involved, it doesn't matter, does it?
But that fence looks crooked from here. The last
I
impulse.
mean, I think we're making a big deal out of, we got a simple solution here. As long as it's screened or painted,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter where it really is. If you can't see it.
well, side
You know,
yard no
that- you know,
further than the
it's
front.
like, mind over matter or whatever.
If you're referring to the side yard no further than the front, or are you agreeing with that? Or you
Yeah,
think,
is the side yard considered just behind the front of the?
Yeah.
no closer to the road than the front.
Basically in between the front and the rear setback, so on the sides of the building. So from the front building back, till the rear would be your side yard. So in this case is, if you look at the front and kind of just measure that out with a straight line across, that's what the side yard is, anything behind that. So, there's the rear yard, that stuff, north of that orange line. So you can see some of those do encroach into the side yard right now,
I mean,
technically.
even last meeting when we were coming up with trying to expand the language to allow for this sort of thing. I mean, this was kind of the subject property that we're thinking of when we're trying to
Yep.
not really write the language around this property, but to
Keep in mind.
keep this property in mind because otherwise they were out of compliance, as it were. So when I was talking about, in the rear yard last time, but I thought that was what we were allowing for this. I didn't, without the map, I just saw driving by this, that already looks like it's behind but
Yeah.
with that bulge in the back, I wasn't aware of that. So-
Yeah, so you can see how they technically should be moved back, I
Yeah.
don't know, 20 feet or whatever. I think there's a third one that might even be in front there.
No,
That's
those
why,
are, those are portable trailers. Those are car
Yeah,
trailers.
so I don't know,
Yeah.
'cause I think there's 3 of them there right now, and I.
No, just, that's showing 2 and then 2 trailers.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got trailers there.
But still, yeah, I didn't realize the 2 containers were, I thought the jut out on the side, that was the back of the property.
Yeah, when you drive by it, looks like it.
It looks like they're
So-
well behind
Yeah.
the structure.
So here's the question again, these properties currently are zone C1 too. That's where the discussion is. These would potentially be the 3 that you could go to C or commercial industrial. Then you got the storage facilities kind of, just, kitty corner here from Stady Hall and stuff. Make that whole area C commercial industrial, do everything in the front and the side, or the rear and the side. And it solves all the problems. Everything becomes conforming, because right now we have some non-conforming uses.
Mhm.
Everything becomes conforming per the zoning ordinance, and then it keeps them completely out of the commercial industrial district then, which could have more, a restaurant or a, more highway industrial or highway business type, facilities. So that's where that whole rezone came up, is kind of looking at these couple properties right here. So,
I can see the rationale behind that.
yeah, and to me, in the commercial industrial, having the side or the rear, I think makes sense. It's not like I said, they're industrial properties. They're not out there, like I said, we just can't have them all over the place, front yards. We still got to potentially screen and different things, but if they do the complementary colors, they'd be allowed to put some things there, and limit it to 3 a property also, prevents somebody from putting like 30 of them out there somewhere. So,
And one other thing we had discussed as well is, this gets deeper into more code changes, but branching out, having a true industrial area versus a commercial industrial. Do you have something, you have your C1, do you introduce something else? Something for these properties, which are very much more commercial than they are industrial. But when you think about this area, then your C1 area, you may only want a couple of storage containers in these areas. But in Shimcor, do you mind if there's up to 4, 5, 6?
That makes sense.
But that you
Yeah.
could, you'd have
And
to,
There's a neighborhood
these
there.
uses to me are technically more industrial than commercial as well. These, in most cities, these would be more in an industrial district or not really your highway business district. So that's where that discussion comes in. As far as a new industrial district, I know like the Vinkmeyer property, that is planned for to be true industrial, not to allow like a Casey store in there or something like that. So, maybe there's a look at Shimcor. Casey's obviously is a commercial business, but it's
Right.
allowed in the commercial industrial. Maybe that goes to more of a C1, where the rest of Shimcor goes to more of a true industrial. And then that could allow for some more, but
From what I seen, Long Lake, the old Washington Scientific is owned by Maury's, the car dealer. He has a museum there. He's got a big parking lot. He also does some body work or whatever, setup, whatever the deal is. He's got a big parking lot for his business, but in the back row, there must be 10 or 15 containers. And that's maybe a different,
yeah.
the C or whatever you're talking about there. I'm just saying, for instance, there, and it's maybe a way that industrial could put product in there and, whatever job they're doing. And
I think in here, you definitely don't want multitudes of them.
no,
It's highway that, and that's
Yeah.
again where I look at, then you get down to the south side here. Mayor Lumber being in there in the current CI. Casey's is definitely highway, even down here, these properties down here. That's doing its thing.
and then even Mare Lumber, they found out, it sounded like a great deal. Well, they can't get forklifts in there.
Right.
So it's really, it sounds like great storage, but everything's handled.
These
bigger
properties you
stuff.
wouldn't want storage containers on, but you get over to Shimcor,
You can hide them in there.
this is more industrial parkish looking. Now you get, obviously Casey's would be that highway, but you get into that-ish area. That's certainly industrial.
Use their own on some of
Originally,
those.
that was an industrial park and it turned into what it is.
Turn in whatever sold.
So with the shipping containers that the fire department uses, they're not for storage. They're built out as a training structure. And talking to the chief, there no immediate plans, but there is potential future plans of building a second tier on it. Since this is about storage containers for storage purposes, would anything in here preclude stacking those in the industrial park or?
Well, right now it says no stacking.
Right.
So it would, yeah. Where is that on? Is that on the site there? I guess I'm not.
Be on the
familiar
very
with-
northeast corner.
Yeah, just north of the fire department.
Was there 2 or 3?
So they're fully screened and there's
Right
3 welded together.
It's a training,
One's
fire
here.
training.
So
Not
if they're
used for
screened
storage.
right now, that's allowed as we speak. Now, the height thing, that's something we'd have to talk about if they wanted to do that. You know, they always have the ability to apply for a variance potentially
Mhm.
too. So, you know, that's typically what you do, because if you allow it here, you really gotta allow it for everybody.
Right.
So I think that would be a situation where you could look at a variance and say that the practical difficulty is it's a training facility. It's unique to, you know, it's a unique use and go down that road.
I didn't know, I was wondering if, because they're used more as a structure rather than storage, if they would fall under, if they would need a separate definition or separate use. Because in here, I thought we were specifically saying that for use for storage, not
I thought of this after the fact.
as a structure.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that was there, to be honest with you.
Is that a training facility? or-
Pardon?
Is that?
I
we're
think
talking- Yeah,
Yep.
training
if
facility.
Public Works wanted
Different
a
rooms are
storage
built out, and
container
this way
in
they
there,
can
it's all
go
screened,
upward
of
with,
course,
search and rescue or whatever. I mean,
Well, there's a
they could
building-
probably live without it too, but if it's that beneficial to them, as far as ladder training, well, you're at 20 feet now.
Yeah, and I don't know, you know, from a building code standpoint, if that needs to meet certain building codes for what they're doing in there, if they stacked it, you know, obviously you got code standpoints because you can't have it tipping over. So that might, you know, we're looking to call this accessory use and meet the accessory structure, some of the standards for setbacks. In that case, they may have to look at almost a building permit possibly. I don't know without having that discussion with the building inspector. You know, because if they're welded together and stacking them, that the people are gonna be up in them, using them like that. There might be some different requirements. I don't know.
Well, I definitely agree if you're gonna stack them that, given the unique circumstances of it as a training ground rather than for business purposes, yeah, variance would be the way to go
Yeah.
on a stack for that. For sure.
And he didn't have immediate plans, but it's just, it has been discussed before.
Discussion.
And if, you know, that would be the time to, if there's a problem with the language.
If there was a variance involved, would that include the different districts to it in or not?
Well, a variance is for that specific, you know,
Specific-
location, but that could be in any district depending on what somebody wanted to ask, I guess.
I don't think we'd be setting precedent.
Yeah, that's a unique
A little different,
situation.
yeah.
That's a little different than what anyone else is gonna use it for.
Anyone else that wants to build a fire training facility,
Yeah.
we'll look at
Go for it.
options.
Well, I was just making
hear 'em.
reference to double stacking, I guess.
Is that?
I was just referencing double.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, there's some commercial industrial that probably want to double stack it too.
But if we limit that, that's not really for storage. That's more for a training, different type of use. too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep.
Sorry, that was a bit of deviation, but okay.
Anyway, too deep in the weeds on that one. Just outsider looking in at what Shimcor is, seems more industrial parkish, regardless of what it was set out to be. This seems not like, I say straight industrial park, because it does have aesthetic elements to it, but definitely industrial parkish. Whereas the nature of this up here, to your point, is more industrial parkish, but it's, I would say on the other leaning
Yeah.
side of that.
Yeah, it's got some commercial aspects to it, but could easily fit in an industrial. park as
Yep.
well.
Has commercial aspects. If these businesses were to come in today and ask about this,
Yeah, some of this would not be allowed.
right? But because their hometown business has been there for a long time.
I just know we got the storage facilities, you know, southwest of there. Those are non-conforming right now per the current ordinance. But if you went to commercial industrial, they'd be conforming. So, you know, the creamery building and that property in that location as well seems, in the storage north of that. So to me, it fixes problems going to that district. 'Cause it takes away the non-conformities.
Mhm.
So,
So you'd look at making these commercial industrial or that area and then making everything off the highway down in Chimcor?
yeah, I'd probably
Industrial.
leave, maybe we go with the Casey store as a C1 actually. 'Cause that's truly a C1 use.
Mhm.
Yeah, just leave that alone, the rest of Shimcor.
You consider the lumberyard closer to C1 or closer to industrial?
It's C1 right now. I would leave it probably at that.
It's zoned CI right now.
Yeah, that's why I'd probably just leave that alone too. We just rezoned those residential properties.
Yep.
But I'd probably leave the lumberyard as is.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be a separate, if we looked at language for that, would that be a separate public hearing or?
The rezone would be a separate public hearing if we wanted to go that route. I guess this language that we're, the text language, we might change it, we might pull out the C1 district.
Yeah, if we're.
If we're rezoning those properties we're talking about, then the C1 would come out of there and just be your typical highway type of district.
Is there an example of a C1 property in town where a side yard container would be, side yard, but on a corner where the side yard is on frontage to another?
A side yard on a street
Mhm.
is not considered a side,
Okay.
yard. It's technically considered a front yard. So it would not be allowed on the street side yard. It could be allowed on the other side.
Mhm.
If you go to, for instance, Casey's, I guess, maybe I'll just try to show you that. Like I said, they would potentially, on the right side of that building, somewhere in the back, they would potentially be allowed to put a storage container.
Yeah.
If they went to C1 and removed it and we left them put them C1, they would not. But on the left side, they would not because it's fronting Highway 25. That's considered a front yard per the zoning ordinance.
Go back to Nuremberg here as a famous example. No, let's say their name out loud, but
Nürburgring. Nürnberg.
Nürburgring.
Nürburgring?
my discussions with John,
Name of a
when I,
racetrack.
when I looked at this property, I looked, well, it's not a totally in the side yard. Do you don't necessarily have to allow total side yard? Do you say the back 50% of the side yard? So rather than allowing, say, because your front side yard,
Okay, go back to R and V.
your front side yard starts here.
Yep.
But instead of that, do you say, well, the back 50%, come on, it's new measurement tool.
No, I understand that.
So now you're saying you can be in the back part of that while restricting the front so you're not having storage containers, because you don't want them up in front in people's faces like that.
Okay, go to R and V's building and find the back 50% of the building.
That's kind of a
That one's, it's back,
three-sided lot, basically.
it's back too far, so that's where I was going with the front. No further front of that one would be still back further than the other one.
So.
That first impound lot is equal to the front, and then there's two sheds on the side that are equal to the front.
Maybe I'll try this. So by definition, because this is really a three-sided lot, you got this property line, you got this out here, then this one.
Mhm.
Rear yard's gonna be considered, I don't know where it's gonna be, but something like this at an angle. So the back triangle part, something like that would be technically considered the rear yard. So where this stuff is back here, that could fit into the definition. I think what you're looking at from a side yard 50% would be something like from here, because this is technically front yard. This is technically front yards. You're kind of looking at some sort of angle, 50%, but it's going to really be back here. We don't really have a true side yard on this lot other than maybe like right along this location, or down in here.
Well, you can see the center roof line.
Yeah, right there.
So were you going with the 50% on the sub neighbors? Were you going with that with the building or the lot?
Well, I think he's saying 50% of the side lot, the side yard.
The
So
lot.
if it's 100 feet deep or 150, depending on the lot, just 50% of that location. So it's really, I think that's what we're saying, right?
Yeah, or a third or a quarter, or
Yeah.
I just picked 50, but some gradient.
Looks like
not the
50% of that
whole
lot would be right in the front of the building.
Yeah.
right where the line
Yeah, 'cause
is.
you don't want storage containers out front by any
And,
sort of
and see, and that's where my thought is, maybe you, instead of saying 50% of the structure, you do 50% of the lot, but if the house or the building's sitting way back, you got that, does that work
See where those two little sheds are next to the building.
right here?
Okay, so take your line to the very south of that, right there. So would that be like 50% of the lot? It sure looks like it to me.
Well, there again, this is a unique lot, 'cause it's three-sided. 50% of lots gonna be based on kind of an angle. If you actually look at the definition, it's gonna be big, because your front yard's gonna be down along here. Your rear yard's gonna be back in this corner.
But in this case, like well, there's some product in there which you can live with it or not, but one of them has some equipment in that you only use every once in a while, whether it's a tranny jack or a hoist. So you kind of want it in your working areas.
Yeah.
That's just a,
So to me, if you really want to do 50%, it'd be roughly, of the building would be roughly right here, and then potentially like this, because that's 50% that way, 50% this way,
yeah,
or could you come down here like that? Something like that was
yeah,
was
that's
technically,
pretty close, yeah.
yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's kind of like sort of unique shaped lot. Normally at four sides is really a three-sided lot. So,
Mhm.
because technically this is a side, this is a side, but then you don't have a rear. So your rear definition would be like this back, something like through there.
Mhm.
Your storage area, not the impound lot, but the storage lot, the old
The original one,
impound
first
area,
one, yeah,
that's pretty much in line with your frontage of your building.
it is exactly in line.
Yeah.
This line
Yep.
right here,
Nope,
right
that
here.
one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That's all in one straight
I
line
mean,
in the
if that
front.
would be,
And for years, people didn't even know we had a impound
storage
lot because they
building
don't
in a
see it when they
straight
drive
line
by.
there, you'd have the building in a straight line there, that would line up with everything in it.
That's what I was saying,
Yeah,
but
it would
that's,
be.
that's pretty close to 50% is what he's showing.
Yeah.
Back a little bit maybe, but
And like I said, in a case like this, if rather than having an angled thing to do a square like this, potentially a variance could be a factor on a lot like this again, to allow something to make sense, versus this strict, it's got to be some weird angle. So, I mean, the way this sits, having it back like here in these areas, that seems to make sense on this property to me. Because this
I mean,
fits in with this
that's basic.
building.
It's basically your viewpoint.
My viewpoint, yeah. I mean, somebody else could think it doesn't, but yeah,
That's what we're discussing, I think.
yeah. So,
Because of the way everything is aligned now, I don't see anything where it would be.
now remember, the other item we talked about is only allowing it in the side yard in the CI district. This is actually C1. That's where that rezoning thing comes into play again. And that's not in your text. It's something we discussed after we drafted the
Again,
text.
I'm open to the CI and industrial changes that you guys discussed earlier. So if we're
Yeah.
looking at this in that viewpoint, I suppose probably at least check the temperature in the room on if everyone's kind of on board without specifics yet of this being because otherwise we're having a different discussion about
Yeah, so
this language if this is going to stay C1.
since I was the one who brought this up in the first place and talked, because I wasn't here at the previous meeting. If this flips to CI and it opens up full side, that's not what you want here. You don't want storage containers up here, here, up here, up here potentially. I don't think you want them there here. Similarly, if this is switching CI. That's right. I think on the spot here a little more. Again,
Yeah,
There's a rabbit hole there.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can get every lot to fit perfectly in what you approve or what you decide, but
Rather than a 50% a distance back from the front of the lot, or could you go with a set foot behind, number of feet behind the front of the principal structure?
like,
Yeah. So say from any structure in that zone,
yeah, you
10
could,
feet
you
or
could
15
do
feet
that.
behind the front of
The thing
the,
you gotta be careful about is the size of a building. So if somebody comes in and wants to buy 20 acres and build a 1 million square foot building, is 30 feet too much or is 50 feet,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? The size of the structure may determine where you want it. So if you do a set like number versus a percent.
Either way, you're getting in percentages and calculations.
Yeah. Because a bigger building, you may make sense to have it a bigger setback than a smaller building. I guess the question is, do you want it in the CI district or not? You know, and then these properties here, how does that apply? That's the big question, I think. For another matter, the ones right here, you know, that you can see them as you drive by, but if they were screened, it'd be legal. So we're not.
It's not that far off.
No, it's not that far off, exactly. I don't know
Yeah,
how,
if you're looking for them, you'll find them. Even in the best planned cities, you'll see them.
you know,
C1, they must be screened regardless.
I think that's, if we allow them to
And
see
then
one.
CI, you allow them more in a non-screen setting as long as they're
Complementary colors and in the right locations. That's kind of, and I guess my question is a CI, the C1 district, I mean, that could be like your nice restaurants, strip malls. I mean, for that matter, a Target or something like that could go there. And do you want storage containers on a structure or a business like that? I would say no.
Yeah, the answer is no.
I think it's cleaner to make these CI and then keep it
Yeah.
only to CI. And
So he's gonna have to screen these for CI, or he could get by
Using
paying them.
CI,
So what would we change this to, so I can keep it straight? What are you thinking you should do with this property?
my thought is these would be zoned the CI, which would allow what he's doing there with up to, you know, whether it's 50% or the entire side yard, that you guys can determine that. And then complementary colors, or they have to be screened.
So colors or screening, yeah.
That's kind of what it says. Now, if you want something different, that's really your guys'.
Well, that's what it was from the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what we talked about last month.
Yeah.
And that's-
Yes, and sorry, I may be muddying waters because I wasn't here for that conversation. I wish I had been. So I'm,
It's either one or the other. I mean, either you paint them or you screen them.
So this
Pretty
screening,
simple.
you could put a fence 10 feet in front
like
and so
right there.
high, is that considered screening, or
Like-
10 foot in front, you'd have arborvitae's, or what are you talking
I
about?
mean, that's the language under the screening section. Basically, a screen wall or fence or planting may be substituted for a screen wall or fence or incorporated into screen wall or fence. So you could do one or the other or a combination. A berm would work if you had it high enough with plantings on top. I mean, there's different things that you're allowed to do.
Or you could make the
Yeah, a
doors
lot
look
of
like a,
options.
you could almost make the doors look like a fence.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, ultimately, as a city, and this
That's why I'm
is,
saying,
Fancy,
where
yeah.
does the fence have to be?
as a city, now here, you know, I think we talked about this a little is, you know, there's no tax benefit to the city for this. Now, if somebody wanted to actually store some extra stuff out there and they put up an accessory building, like a 20 by 40 accessory building, that potentially generates more tax base, which is ultimately what the city wants. So, you know, my thought is I'm not saying you can't allow them, but do you want to make them so easy that everyone's going to do it versus building a building? That's the thing that you kind of got to weigh in your heads on what you really truly want.
Well, that's all it's about anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they definitely want to save money by using these.
Yep. And that's where the commercial industrial district, it makes sense to allow them. The C1, and we talked about the public institutional, which would be the city if they wanted to put something out, you know, at the Public Works building or something. I don't know. You want to bring up the other item?
I'm looking more at shed now.
Well,
Okay.
The thing is,
Yes.
the thing is, it's real, they're here, so we have to deal with them.
Yeah, they're there. Like I said, this one here is pretty close to being already in line with the requirements.
Yeah.
So,
So that 40 or 50 feet, we'd maybe have to do some research on that to see. I mean, a trailer comes in at 53 feet, a semi-trailer.
I don't know if we're allowing the semi-trailer.
No, I'm just saying, these are kind of built on some kind of shipping platform type of thing. I don't know if they're that long, but
Standard size or?
that's what I don't know, yeah.
So
Is 50 a standard size or is 40, you know?
40 is standard size. I was doing some looking up about
There you
standard
go.
shipping container size. 40 foot is about the longest they come in. 10, 20, and 40 the external width is almost always 8 feet. And then the external height can get up to 9.6 or 9.
So therefore, we have the 10-foot thing, and that's
Covers it.
covers it. So
The idea being, you want to encompass the standard sizes, I would say up to 40 feet. I don't know if you want to.
If we wanted to change the 8 to say 8.5 or 9 on the width, in case one's over a few inches or something.
that's what, I mean, that's a standard for pretty much everything.
8, 8 foot.
Truck bed is their box. is
Yeah,
8 feet.
I know there's boat trailers that are 8'6" though versus 8.
Our tow truck is 8.5,
Yeah,
just because it can be and otherwise. Yeah, but there will probably be somebody with a semi-trailer, but it just can't be 40
So
feet
8.5
longer.
would be
You paint them up too and hide them.
to make a tolerance where it would work.
yeah, it gives them a few extra inches to play with.
Yeah.
I don't see that end of the world there.
40's probably right then, according to this.
There's a 45. Do you want to go 45?
In some of the other communities I looked at, I've never seen it at 40. It's always 40 was the max.
I would just say keep it at 40. I mean, if someone needs to bring in a 45 storage container type, like,
See, and
I'm
that,
gonna have a conversation about that.
and that'll eliminate your 53-foot long semi-trailers, which, I mean, they can be painted up and look the same. They got a garage door and probably even look better, but brought to the ground.
Right.
But that would keep it from being a 53-foot trailer brought in. So I don't even know if they make 40-foot trailers anymore. So, but that would kind of hinder that a little bit.
40 by 8, that's 320 square feet too. So it's
It's a big area. I mean, that's a
structure.
lot of,
How deep is your shop?
Post 200, you got to get up.
I wrote it down because everybody was asking me. I don't know. Is it 40? Probably. It's 30. No. Well, you can get a 30-foot truck in there and then the pit. How deep do you think that pit is? That ain't 10. That's 20. Lineman pit, the lineman part.
Eight?
Do you?
No, you got your ramps, then you got another area there. Maybe if you think 15, that'd be 55.
Your fence you got up the railing up there, that's not more than 10 feet.
I think
Your railing out where the stove is.
this area.
It's an 8-foot section. It's probably 10 feet. So that's 40 feet. Okay.
I'm just
It
thinking
seems-
if you do this.
Seems like you laid a sheet of plywood down there.
I don't think you should have them putting
All
storage
over the-
containers way
10 to
up.
12 feet.
Mine was like
10 to 12.
50% of the lot or something like that.
10 to 12. So it's, the building, like I said, the tow truck is,
I.
rollback is 30
I
feet.
don't think you guys
You
should.
can get that on the pit, so that's 30 feet long, and then figure that,
Right
so,
up to the door.
yeah, so if it's
All
If it's 50 to 55 feet.
All them that-
I bet it's 40.
40 to 45 feet, yeah, 46 and.
40 is an even number. They usually,
Then I think.
it wouldn't be 45.
No, I mean, it was 46 or whatever the even number, but I have it written down, but
Couple is, you're looking at a couple.
everybody kept asking me, so I wrote down. Well, why would
But
I
yet you
why would I
don't
have to
remember
remember that? Why'd I have to remember it
You
for?
have one of these businesses that wants to shove.
It's like remembering horsepowers of
5 in
engines.
the
Whatever,
back.
You can only drive 55.
These are much bigger lots. They're all
I think it was
CI,
65, like by 45, 60.
That's number, I guess that's up to any.
the number that's,
We solved that by
Resonating
making those
a little
industrial and
bit.
making industrial
okay.
have larger numbers.
I kicked around a couple times, but didn't really worry about
Now
it.
you're adding new zoning classifications.
Oh,
That's not a world ending, but again, that's where I said the rabbit
I
hole.
don't know what the square
This
foot
thing?
lots are versus the ones up on 7th.
well, you gotta cover yourself.
you do.
Well, there's one guy that's
Sliding number based on.
putting stuff on top of.
That's-
10,000's 3, 20,000's 4.
That's what we were talking about before the meeting.
Yeah.
But then he gave the example of one of the
Well, this
lots
one
up
here would-
behind
Yeah,
Bob's Repair, right?
Structure, or no six structure at all.
Yeah.
So just as an example.
So we think it's written pretty good?
I think it's,
Bob owns all this too.
Yep.
What's to stop him if he wants more storage containers to subdivide, connect onto?
There wouldn't be nothing at that point unless you limited the number. Now, there's some floodplain back there though, too. I don't know where that line is.
Let's assume we're not dealing with floodplain, just the principle of it. Add on a bunch. So I think you might want to look at an upper limit regardless of lot size.
Well, And just so everyone knows, we're talking about the number
Sorry,
of
yeah.
3. And in Shimcor, is that number 3 too little, or should we allow more? I know last month we kind of thought 3 was kind of the number, but
Usually when we made up an ordinance, if things came up where things should be changed, then we changed them.
yeah,
So
a couple
if
years
it
down the
worked
road or
for
something.
3 and all of a sudden, they needed 4 or 5, and maybe it's time to change the ordinance.
So the reason why I brought up, because if you're looking at rezoning these to CI and you're allowing 3 here, because if it's CI, it's going to be the same zoning classification as Shimcor. If you have 3 here and we go down to Shimcor, bigger lots, you might have businesses that want to have 4, maybe 5. And we're saying, well, Shimcor, that makes sense to have it. You could have 4 or 5, but then you would also have to allow it up on that north side too as a,
But then you can do that by variance though.
Well, I don't know if we want to do a variance to allow additional units. If we're saying 3 is the number, that's kind of the number.
but
I guess-
then, sorry, yeah, then we were talking about, do you have a certain number of containers based on square footage of the lot up to a maximum? So if you have a bigger lot,
Have more.
Any over 3 would be a calculation of your green space lot size, or
something of that
There was a
nature.
remark made that we're getting.
Remember, we got a lot coverage requirement that we can't exceed either, because these count towards that also. Now, I don't know if that would apply in any of this, but some of these lots got a lot of paving and, stuff like that too. Like the one right across the street, that's pretty covered already. There ain't much room there in some of those.
Mhm.
So that would have to be looked at also.
So just 1.81 acres, 1.28,
Donnie, what do you think?
2.35.
Right direction? Okay, you're in the right direction? Okay.
1.22.
Donnie's gonna move anyway, he don't care.
Unless we.
Sure, it'd be
said
nice to put a dragster in one, huh?
What about like something like any lot
A rail.
under, half an acre has up to 3, from a half acre to 1 acre has up to 4, and anything above an acre would have up to 6.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
2 lots are acres.
That's an acre,
Was everything done?
That would,
for an acre?
that would involve,
Yeah, it was
a little over an acre and a quarter.
0.88 for you. Oh, I see. Is that yours as well?
That's Bob's.
That's Bob's.
It's got
I
everything.
don't know if that counts.
We used to have 1 acre in the, and then it was counted in the middle of the street.
talking about an empty lot?
1.45.
It was, it was,
Bob's is bigger than some in Shimcor.
How much did you
those,
say this
those
was?
2 lots when they were put in, they were measured from the street, center of the street.
1.49.
On the
I
lot,
can't hear you.
You gotta kind of go what's already on the lot.
1.5.
Case like that, then they're talking about square footage,
You go down to Shimcor here, and
coverage.
Was there somewhere that has more than 3 right now?
this is 1.22 right here.
Is there somewhere that has like 5 or 6 right now at this point? They do?
But the landscaping place, they're using them as work tables to store their equipment on. But how many is that? How recent is that picture?
This is the 2024 flyover. So it's very recent.
Okay, so,
Spring.
God, I thought I saw a whole bunch with landscape stuff on top of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it should be restricted to. But we do get into the revenue factor then too, so.
One back there.
And maybe 3's a number, like you said, and then if they need more storage, they gotta build a building. I don't know.
This one, south of what it's outlined, I think they're right up to the building.
Yeah. I think we just limit that,
Limit it to 3.
limit it to 3 and then things happen.
If somebody has 4 right now, they're technically grandfathered in.
I'm just trying to thread
What do you
them.
think, Tommy?
I think it's, under management, pardon?
3 or 4? What do you wanna do?
3. Well, if you look at the
Or to even number if they stack them like they did there.
artistic vision there, I mean,
Way they got them stacked there, there's 4 of them on that one lot there that, to the right.
Here?
Isn't that 4 of them sitting there?
oh, yeah,
Or what is
I
that?
think it is, no,
That's a
that's
set of 3.
that's 3 and 3.
Oh, that's 3 and 3.
We got 6.
We had 6 there.
They have a nice door. It doesn't look like
Well, that's
it's
what I mean.
fixed.
It's-
Behind and
Yeah.
those are actually,
Unless it looks nice.
they're renting.
Again, that's where if you talk rezone CI on the north side, if you allow this, then how do you prevent it from up
happening
there?
Over there.
What's your mechanism? Because you obviously don't want the same thing up on the north side. However, it's not true C1, so here we're in this weird space.
You limit it, this would be allowed. It's already there.
Yeah.
You know, it is-
But
it's
no,
in the- it's
nobody
in the rear.
sees that he has them hid very nice.
I
If you
think
do see it, you see one, you see
it
the.
looks like he has,
Right.
he
Well,
He
does have
what's
some trees planted back there too. I don't know, that was part of his landscaping, if I remember right.
So I'm switching to bird's eye view.
What kind of bird?
Yeah, hummingbird. Hummingbird.
Took me to the wrong one.
You wanted to see street view? No?
I think it was this one I wanted. Maybe this will do it. Come on. Hey. Look at that, huh?
Mm,
All right, it's getting angry. So the other one is more of a top down.
Yep.
Straight top
Yeah.
down. We can get bird's eye view.
Okay, so, yeah. I'll go south a little bit. You can call them easier.
Oops.
Wind up having a storage.
Mhm.
There. One,
Look at it from different directions.
two.
Yeah, he's got 6. Oh, there's one right there.
That one looks like
Our
it's
property
45
is
feet.
right, is up on the top, right?
Which one?
Winkemeyer property,
Yeah.
that farm?
The no,
The
yeah.
east side is on top.
Yep, where that
right
field
there.
was. Yep.
So we're looking at it from the,
So in the future,
That one right
Side
there.
on the
for,
south.
for the visual for future industrial park, right? That area.
So he's got a small one and a large one. Keep going over.
Another one. And there's probably one alongside the building.
there's another one.
Go alongside the
Okay.
building.
We're gonna run away already.
This way?
Yeah, no, see where the equipment is parked on top of one? On the
Oh, yeah, right there.
very
Side.
Keep
Yep,
going
I
all the
see
way
it.
to the right of the building there,
Along the building.
along the building there.
Here?
Yeah. That's where the equipment is on top of one. Whether those are one or two or whatever.
It's about a foot ahead of the.
Is that a wall right up in
Structure.
front there off the pavement? That kind of screens that? What is that on the corner?
I think that's the end of the
Let me
unit.
shift it here.
It's the end of the tank. Or-
There you go. That side.
It's hard to say.
That's the landscaping place right
It
there.
is just one.
Yeah, it looks like just one, but still.
But now you can see the other one's a flatbed
Yep.
instead of a container. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
The fun with aerial imagery.
I'd like to see the front though, looking at it, because if that's screened, outdoor storage is allowed
Mhm.
to be screened, and that's what I'm trying to see was that's, I got the driveway there, obviously.
Sorry, where's that?
So right behind the water tower stem, on the corner of that building, if you go back to the other corner, it looked like they had a wall or something there. I couldn't tell what that was.
From the other angle?
Yeah, looking at it from Shimcor Street itself.
Let me get shifted.
See that little, on the end there? No, go down to bring it up that
You
way.
got the laser pointer?
Well, I need to see down here,
Okay.
right there.
Thank
That,
you.
is that like a wall or what is that?
Zero in is coming closer or not?
It looks like a wall.
Looks like they got that kind of screened is what it looks like, but I can't tell what that
Enhance
is.
Or something.
CSI.
So if that's like a wall and they're screening it, obviously they still have their driveway here, but they could put some sort of gate that would screen that and they're meeting code basically. Looks like they're already kind of doing that.
Hmm.
We're getting into your situation. We're getting in your situation. How far back should you go?
No, yeah. Yeah, no closer than the building is.
Remember, right now, if it's screened, it's allowed. They're allowed.
Yeah, she kind of should be too. There was a fence going across there, then they put that other stuff behind there. I should talk.
So it would be screened on the water tower side there too, right?
Well, I don't know, that looks like a fence. I don't know how tall it is or what that exactly is, but
There's a fence there. I don't know how tall it is or what it looks
I don't know if it's just chain link or. I don't know.
Chain link.
They don't have the slats in it or whatever.
That's a city's fence.
It's a city fence, oh.
I think it's 6 or 8 feet, something like that. It's chain link. There's no
Yeah,
opaqueness to it.
open.
Trying to
Hmm.
keep people out of the water tower space.
Yeah. I guess, if they had screening here and across here, is there an issue with what they're doing? Now some point in time, they made a fence back here when the Vinkmeyer property develops, but
Or do you not care? Because do you care if it's back here in the rear yard, does it need to be screened? Do you care? Is that
outdoor
far back?
storage needs to be screened. That's the requirement right now. Now, whether this is all officially screened or not, I don't know. I'd probably say it's not 100% screened, but that's the requirement.
It's the bad guy that goes out there and tells them to do it.
Typically, stuff like that, unless you have specific complaints, it just stays as is until. And as you said, it's an industrial area. Well, are people really that worried about what it looks like in there?
So again, looking at the top where the Vinkerbear property is, if that ever comes to pass, would that have to be screened back there then?
It technically
It
should
doesn't
be,
look like it's
yes.
screened now, does it?
No,
So that would then too have to be screened?
it should be. Now, whether this guy would be required to, or the new business would put screening up there, that probably could be talked about. I mean, they've got some pine trees, it looks like right there on this property, 3 of them. You could do a couple, pretty good row that would do some pretty good screening through there. Or mix that in with some sort of fence or. The most common one you see is a chain link with those slats in it, and that does a pretty good job. You see that all over in these types of areas. I think that's what they got on the property across the street.
Yeah.
With all the stuff being stored there, no building on it.
My personal perspective is if industrial faces industrial, who cares if they're screening? It's industrial.
Well, it depends on if there's a street there or not.
I would
But
go,
if it's industrial,
Yeah.
who cares?
street would be south of the water tower potentially. That's where that little, property.
Like, I was just, if Vinkemeyer's land were developed into industrial, basically copy Shimcor and slam it here, Shimcor 2.0, do you really care if there's a screened fence here between 2 industrial properties? It's industrial.
If somebody builds here and they want to screen it, that's their option,
right.
depending on what they want to do.
Or even if you have Shimcor here and they have, storage containers sitting on the side, it's an industrial park road. If you're going down an industrial park road to see pretty things, you're in the wrong neighborhood.
There you go.
Good point.
It's like walking into McDonald's and demanding health food. Well,
Good
you made a
luck.
big mistake just walking into McDonald's for health food to start with.
You'd slip on the grease from running up to the
Yeah, if you have it.
food line as they run out. You ever see the grease?
Yes, I have. It's so gross.
Floors is full of grease from walking to the kitchen to the people waiting for their stuff outside.
Gross.
No, I am not pushing my viewpoint by any stretch of the imagination. It's just
I'm just trying to be comical.
pretty
It's pretty-
industrial parks, unless
Oh,
they're a medical park or a tech park. But if it's a generic, a pretty industrial park, that's just an odd concept to me. Now, it shouldn't be trashy. Now, you don't swing the pendulum the opposite direction, just free for all.
Upkept, but
Yeah, and in the case of, the only thing that needs to be screened from industrial is outdoor storage, which is probably what this property consists of. If it's just rear yard, like this place, you wouldn't need to screen this to a property over here that's industrial. So technically, if it's residential, it does need to be screened, but this is obviously
For
not
sure.
residential.
Well, I guess I was looking at that supposed farm that was gonna come in there. Would that be something that would be then?
That adds some different uses to it, so, like was like a beer garden brewery thing or whatever they were talking about.
Greenhouse, I guess.
Greenhouses, it's industrial in nature, but
Industrial park, it's anything.
it was, yeah, it was kind of a mixed use situation where they had, people could go there. A lot of these breweries, these things that are being built all over. They're in industrial areas in most cases because they brew their beer on site, which is an industrial use. So,
I was in the cities. I went to, I think it was 56 Brewery in Minneapolis a couple weekends ago. I had trouble finding the place because it looked like any old industrial building. It wasn't, nothing stood out, nothing like that.
Actually, my nephew got married in Chicago, and that's where the party took place. A gutted out building and right in the industrial park.
It's becoming more and more common.
Yeah.
And popular.
well, I guess the question is, what do you want to do? Are we good at 3? Do we want to add more? And then keep the side yards at 50%? Those are kind of the questions. If we're ready to draft text and bring it to a public hearing, I guess we can set that for next month.
Well, I don't think if they go, past the frontage of the building, I think that could be just a line right there where, whether it's 50% of the middle of the lot or not, I don't know why that should make a difference. As long as they don't expose it further than the frontage of the building, it still would be in
So on the
line.
side, anywhere in the
It
side
still
yards.
would be in line with the building, and it could go, whichever direction that is, north, south, east, or west, as long as it's parallel with the frontage of the building. I don't know, then it could be screened from that point on if they didn't want to paint it or whatever. I mean, that would solve things for you too, right?
So in that case, you could have, lumberyard could have storage containers
Potentially right up.
right up.
Now, one thing that has to be looked at is I don't believe that meets the
Parking lot?
setbacks.
Are you talking about in their parking lot?
Storage containers. I'm trying to think of other properties
Yeah, so in the lumber,
because I also hate unintended consequences of things.
so in the lumber yard though, because this does not meet front yard setbacks, it would actually be further back, so it'd have to meet the front setback.
Okay.
Which I believe is 30 feet if I remember right.
The other example I will bring in, that's a C1. I mean, depending if we rezone or not, this is all C1 right here. So if you're talking side yards allowing, again, it's a mixed conversation, of course. Where would you allow storage sheds on this property? Or storage containers are already storage sheds, but what, if any, storage containers would you want here?
I don't think should be allowed there, but I mean, that's,
C1,
yeah.
and C1 would have up to 3.
These are actually non-conforming in the C1 district. It really should be commercial industrial, then it would be conforming. So if that went to commercial industrial, you could allow them just like Shimcor. In long term though, it was expected that this would go to a higher density residential, which I don't know if that's realistic. It probably should be looked at to be re-guided.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty far into the future if it would be, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's still 2 more buildings that could be built on that site based on their approved site plan.
So this is from our 2040 comp plan.
Yeah, this would be the area right there, high density.
High density residential is the brown.
And that is commercial industrial right there.
Yep.
And this is C1, the creamery, C1 up here in this area. This property was, I think there's a house there now, but that could be redeveloped as well. That could stay C1, could go to commercial industrial to match stuff around it. There's some houses right in this little location.
Well, that whole brown area is houses, ain't it?
Right here,
Yeah.
that's the storage sheds.
Storage sheds
Remember
and
all them storage sheds?
L. Thamer's.
L. Thamer's
Correct.
property.
Just south of that 7th Street.
There's a small little
Oh, okay,
apartment
okay,
building right
Fifth
there in
Street.
this corner,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is right
Fifth
behind
Street,
City Hall.
okay. No, I think we did that because of the residential area that was there. That way we zoned it that.
Yeah, because there's a small apartment right here in this little piece right there. So they thought this could be re-guided long-term. And we had to find more spots in the plan for high density, if you remember right,
Yeah.
for the Met Council to meet their requirements. So this was one spot that was looked at. Some stuff was down over here that was looked at.
Well, I don't think that's gonna go away either. The
They're even pushing higher density
No, I mean,
More than
that
ever.
residential area isn't gonna go away either.
right here.
Yeah,
No, that's gonna
Well,
stay.
on 7th Street there, along 7th
Up here,
Street, yeah.
yeah, them houses.
Yeah, that's not gonna go away.
Yeah, there's a house here that could be redeveloped. Then there's a little block of houses, single-family homes right there. This one here could potentially redevelop. It's a fairly large parcel with one house.
That's pretty much wetland there.
All
It's a
right,
fun little tool.
we better get back.
Right,
to
right
this.
here is where you can put two more of the
We better
buildings.
get back to this. I'm getting, my stomach's kind of
So, I
like,
mean, they're still planning on building.
like I don't know what to
Makes
do.
sense to be in, or residential.
Yeah, not to horrifically muddy the waters on everything, but
That's cool.
So all we're really concerned about whether or not we want to rezone those two little areas there and.
Right here?
Because of what we're doing, huh?
Yeah, these three parcels and then this area.
I know, I ain't gotta do that.
Did you say no to these right here? You want to keep them C1 and not CI,
Well, CI is,
commercial industrial? This is, I think, C1.
Yep.
Or is that commercial industrial? I can't remember.
it's the, I'll bring that back.
There it is,
That one is commercial.
right there. Yeah, so they're all C1 right now. They'd have to be rezoned to commercial industrial. And then that's the creamery site right there, which is downtown commercial, which could be zoned something different as well.
so there isn't any allowed in downtown commercial area.
No.
No storage containers in C2.
What about public institutional, allowing them in there? That would be the blue areas. Schools, city hall, parks.
I never put them in a park, but if a school wanted one back there for some reason.
A lot of schools use them for like football stuff, you know.
They use them for like athletic storage
Yeah.
more often than not when you see them in schools or by schools.
That's where you would rather have a small shed there versus a storage container.
Lots of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
What is the will of the planning commission?
Table it.
There's no action to table tonight. There's nothing to table,
Well,
just
discussion.
discussion.
Just what direction do you want to see things go? We talked about a lot. 3, let's go with 3. Is 3 the number?
I think 3 is the number.
3's the number?
Anybody who has more than 3 today
Should build a shed.
is grandfathered in. If you need more than what you have today, you should build a shed, realistically. If you have 5 and all of a sudden you are like, I need to bring in 2 more, well, no, build a shed and get rid of them. Figure it out. But
Like Les says, if Vinkmeyer's comes in and they have 10, 12 acre lots, bigger industrial buildings, we can relook at the code at that point.
yeah,
Or maybe that's a true industrial district where we can allow more than 3.
right, exactly. But as it sits today, I think 3 is ideal. It encompasses, what we're looking at today and maybe even relative near future too. And like I said, if all of a sudden some of those other ones are looking at, or somebody's looking at 4 or 5 or adding on to what they currently have, then you say, you know what? No, it's a shed.
So technically, in a downtown area, the post office would not be able to have even a small one,
Technically, no.
which don't
So
hurt
when
me.
you're driving down the alley and you're looking this way, instead of looking that way, you look that way.
Yeah. It's not bothering me, but we're trying to write something up.
Just throw another wrench in there,
I
Tom.
could care if you had 40 foot.
Well, we're gonna pick out a whole bunch of stuff we're gonna go at.
Yeah.
It's an institutional building.
But then again, why would you have to bow to Amazon? Why can't they comply to whatever, get to, if it was. Yeah, yeah.
We got
Limit
3 is
3.
good. Public institutional, do you want to allow those in public institutional places?
I don't think so.
I don't.
City can afford a shed.
Why? Public institutional, I mean, that's, if they need something, they get what they want anyway.
Yeah, they can build a shed and jack it up and sell it when they don't want it.
Dun, dun,
You know, if they
dun.
build a garage.
So if we do a 50% or in the rear 50% of the lot, then can we also just reference that it at no farther forward than the front of the structure? If we're talking somewhere where the structure is
Further
so
back.
far back,
You
So-
could do that language.
rear
Yeah.
50%, but no farther forward than the primary.
That's a good way to put it.
There's gonna
I
be-
mean, it can be done. It's up to you guys if that's what you want.
No, I don't know where to.
If they put up screening, then they can have it up to that front building line or front yard line.
Well, we'd have to potentially put the wording in there. I mean, it's right now, if they got them match and complementary colors, they don't need the screening. Yeah,
I'm fine with the 50% line. It's just there's gonna be like RV where the structure is almost all the way back to the
yeah.
fence.
Kind of complicates it, but
Thank Tom for putting his building where it is.
I didn't.
That's how he found it.
I know why.
Bless you. Jeez.
Plus,
Holy buckets.
so I think you got the flavor of it, John, so
Yeah.
if you want to work on that.
50% and then no further forward than the front of
Yeah.
the building. But no
Keen
forward.
Planning mind, see what you can come up with.
Yep. And that's 50% of the lot you're talking, right?
Yeah,
50% of the lot.
I think so. I mean, otherwise, like we discussed before, the structure can be all over the place. So 50% of the structure can, some places can be a tiny
Mhm.
area. And I don't know, I don't think there was any pushback to complimentary or.
No, I think those are
Tell
the,
them colors.
I think those are the main items that we had discussion on.
That was it.
Yep, the big ones. All right. I can call for the public hearing or get the public hearing notice out, I should say, bring that back in September, I guess, and see who shows up from the public.
Would you like me to do special invitation to businesses that have storage containers?
I mean, sure, probably. Probably would be beneficial. I mean, whether anybody shows up or not, but at least it's out there.
They will.
That's okay.
Get their input.
Yeah.
If you want to shy away from that. Hence the purpose of a public hearing.
Well, if you don't invite, then you get the complaints that I was never invited. Blah, 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 blah.
Did you do that?
I know. I deal with that a lot.
Complaints never.
You good with that now? 4A,
Yeah, I think we're good with that.
4B. Dan Lovitz and Ryan Kuski.
Yep, Dan Livitz, he lives up in Fieldstone and he's on the HOA board. He's expressed interest in being on the planning commission. And then Ryan Kuski, who's also on our park board, has expressed interest in being on the planning commission as well. Two fine citizens by my measure.
I can't remember if I was interviewed to get on here by the city council. Or was it EDA, or EDA maybe it was, or park board, somewhere I was interviewed.
I was too, and I can't remember.
Planning commission, I was being interviewed for the planning commission
Connie
on my,
McIntosh.
on my
I think it
renewal
was
date,
EDA.
renewal date.
It was EDA.
Yeah, Les and I both got interviewed on that a few years ago when Maggie was here.
I was gonna say, I think mine was with Patty and with Maggie.
I just
Not that it's.
Trying to muddy the
I
water.
was
again.
gonna say.
Are you? Do you want to be on the interview committee, Tom?
No,
That's
I
what
hate-
I'm
no, I
hearing.
hate that.
So did city council interview them or did planning commission interview and then?
I think- I would say- I think I had one council and one, maybe it was just council and Maggie.
When
So
And it was
when I did
the
full
council.
and city administrator.
I would say it would have been similar to like Nikki. It would be like Nikki, right?
So was it full board or was it
Just
a couple people?
just a couple people.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just one and then Maggie.
So I think
Just saying.
Les was up for his 50th renewal, and me were both on the same and it was the one before you, and it was
Oh,
full
is it?
council at a council meeting
Oh, really?
or like a special.
And I got hammered, but good. They got, asked me 100 questions at least.
Well, you're a known quantity, so I would too.
I answered all of them.
Just say yes.
Sure you did.
However, wants
So
to be handled.
those
I
two
don't
would be
care.
an
Maybe it was
addition.
50.
Yes.
Addition to the, I gotta figure out what all your guys' terms are too anyway, so.
No. Don't get paid much if that's a.
I mean, nobody's jumping at the bit to,
For this whole meeting.
no one's jumping at the
This one
doors
was
trying to
worth
take
it.
our spots.
City's getting their value worth out of you guys tonight.
Anything else on 4B? 5, next meeting, September 3rd.
Checkmate on the
6,
calendar.
commissioners report.
I see there's a sign sitting by the creamery,
There is.
Mhm.
a for sale sign.
He's engaged a realtor for that. I've agreed that if there are any questions about use of the property, zoning, things like that, I will happily field them to expedite that process. We've had inquiries on it. Some I've had to politely tell them it's not a proper use for that district. Others gave them the details, sent them links to C1 or C2, even C1 for possible rezone on that. It's on that edge of the C2, C1. So depending on what they're pitching, let it go on that.
You can play it one way or the other.
But I've had probably 4, 5, 6 phone calls.
It's not bad.
Would that involve demolition or not?
Not necessarily. I guess if somebody wants to throw money at restoring the building and bringing
I
it to
mean, well,
code.
If you had people interested, they didn't indicate what they would be doing.
Right, so an interested party could restore that if they wanted to put the money into it.
Pretty big restoration project.
It certainly is. I personally feel it would be cheaper to plow under and redo. But if somebody really wants to do the restoration portion of it, it's their money.
I think you could restore, take that saw and cut out that creamery sign, put that on a cement little thing.
Memorabilia.
Huh?
A memorabilia.
Yeah, put that out front. On a-
Yep, just keep the one little piece.
On a monument.
So we did get that property for $1 once and nobody could decide what they wanted to do with it.
Should have kept it.
Well, they had to do something with it within 5 years. And if nothing was done in 5 years, it went back to the county. That's where we're sitting now. Right, John?
Something like that. I don't remember the exact terms, but
Gee, what should we do? Let's see, what should we have a restaurant in there or should we have a sitting area?
Anything else on number 6?
No.
Number 7, number 9, number 9.
What are we on, 7?
7, yes.
Take motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Motion been made, second, any
Aye.
discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show of hands.
I should have started a
Thank you,
discussion.
everybody.
Huh?
I should have started a discussion.
mine on it.